Welcome to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast by the Lincoln County News. We are a community newspaper based in Midcoast, Maine, and we provide the most comprehensive, in-depth coverage available anywhere of the 18 towns and one plantation that make up Lincoln County. My name is Johnathan Riley, and I'm a reporter here at the Lincoln County News.
My name is Molly Rains, and I'm also a reporter here.
And I'm Piper Pavelich, the third and final reporter here.
Yes, and later we will also have our editor-in-chief, Maia Zewert, joining us.
Aside from that, today we'll hear some of the top stories from our March 13th edition, and then we're going to take a little trip down memory lane as we prepare to say goodbye to me. Our Bristol, South Bristol, Bremen, Monhegan reporter, Johnathan Riley. That's me.
Yeah,
that is you.
And when will you be leaving us, John?
I'll be leaving us on March 19th, so this coming Wednesday. So
a bit of a jovial way to break the news.
Yeah. But first, here are some of the stories from this week.
Yes, in Edgecombe we have a centenarian.
A what now?
What does that mean, Molly?
I think, now I'm doubting myself, but a 100-year-old person.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So June Trotter, who's a resident at Edgecombe Green, turned 100 on March 7th. And I had the pleasure of attending her birthday party, which was a lot of fun. They have some great decorations, like things that say, like, you're 100 with a lot of glitter on them.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I got to speak with June at her party and then the day after. And it was amazing to speak with her because she's lived a very long life full of diverse experiences. She was a writer for much of her career. After she also served during the World War II era as a nurse overseas. And then she came back and got married, had 5 children, and decided after her husband died an early death that she needed to make ends meet on her own. So she became a writer, and then she drove all over the country, like chasing down gigs.
Whoa.
She's so cool.
Yeah, she's so cool. And she has amazing stories from that, as you might expect. Like, one of them is that she was driving across the country at one point with all her kids, and her youngest daughter, who was like 3, started throwing her shoes out the window of the car while they were driving. So she wound up in like a new city with no shoes for her youngest daughter.
Well, what did she have to say about all that learning, adventure, and pursuing passions?
That it was worthwhile?
Yeah.
Yeah, she seemed to, when she was reflecting, she was saying that the thing that's brought her the most joy is all of the people that she's met along the way and all the stories she's heard. And she definitely seems to believe that learning is lifelong. So yeah, she's at Edgecombe Green. She's been writing recently, and she's looking to publish a short story and some poetry. So
cool.
Yeah, keep an eye out because she's very prolific and she's still producing work.
Awesome.
Yeah. So in terms of municipal government, what's going on in South Bristol?
Not much. They did it. They had their annual town meeting, and they passed
the first town meeting of the season, right?
Yeah, we were kicking off annual town meeting season, and South Bristol, it was a good time. They updated their harbor ordinance, which hadn't been updated since 1889, 1989.
Basically the same era.
More or less. And the update included more definitions and regulations. Specifically, though, it outlined and defined that houseboats are prohibited from South Bristol waters. And that was something we are seeing also in the Bristol Harbor Ordinance that is being updated, and proposed updates that'll take the floor this coming week on Tuesday down in Bristol. But outside of houseboats, they passed their education budget and their municipal budget, and there was a bit of concern from residents about the lag from when the school and the town receives their audits and then building a budget around that. For those of you that don't know, a lot of auditors are behind on audits.
So many.
It's a nationwide problem.
No schools, People
it's not
can't get audits.
exactly. It's just, and I think it's a staffing shortage, and I think some complications from like COVID, like rearranging of like procedure. I don't know the exact details, but I do know that it is not a Lincoln County exclusive issue. So some voters were concerned that we were creating budgets around things that hadn't been audited, which is a reasonable concern. But after that brief discussion, they're like, well, there more or less isn't anything we can do. We need to continue, look into the future and hope that it catches up.
Yeah.
So that was really the biggest discussion of the night.
It's an interesting one. I've been wondering if it could be a story in itself, like the lack of auditors. I know it's not Lincoln County specific, but many of my towns are having to guess about fund balance, or maybe like Jefferson is working on their audit. But yeah, it can be scary, especially for towns that maybe are operating close to the line or were the last time they got audited. I don't know. Not speaking for any towns. But.
No, not at all. But it's true. And so maybe even though it's a nationwide problem, maybe there's a story in the county specific effects.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening in South Bristol.
You had some a re-election as well of officers?
Yeah. Bruce Farron Jr. was reelected to the select board. He's the current chair of the select board. And we also had Sandy McPhee, who was reelected to the school committee in both uncontested elections.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. Didn't need to write about those. Congratulations, Sandy. And congratulations, Bruce.
Yes. And speaking of local things that are reflective of nationwide phenomena, I wrote a little bit about the housing development, which is planned for 80 Gray, or the site of that former school in Waldoboro on School Street, where they've been in the works for kind of since like 2021-22 to produce 36 units of affordable housing for senior citizens, which we all know and hear about all the time. Housing is really in demand in Lincoln County. So naturally, the select board is eager to see this project go in, and so is the developer, which is Volunteers of America, Northern New England. They do a lot of affordable housing. But ever since the abatement and demolition of the school, there hasn't been really much going on at the site. So they brought in Brian Seitz, who's the Vice President of Business Development and Implementation for VOA, Volunteers of America, to talk about that. And he kind of gave an overview of how challenging it is right now for affordable housing developers to access grants. And that is both in terms of like the broader landscape. They had applied for a couple rounds of funding over the course of the past year and a half that were denied either on technicalities or things that he says were miscommunicated, or their application just wasn't quite right.
Right.
But now, as they move into trying to get the next rounds, they're encountering the vast uncertainty around federal funding, which is kind of something we're hearing a lot about this budget season in terms of people who've relied on federal grants in the past. There's a lot of shuffling around going on at the federal level. So he was saying the Department of Housing and Urban Development, their funding is kind of uncertain. So because that's where a lot of the primary funds for this project were imagined to come from, it's kind of unclear where that'll go. But he was also saying, we haven't given up, and there will still be funding streams. They're going to keep applying. And at the meeting, he definitely seemed confident that this project is still very much happening. It's just hit a little bump, according to Brian.
Well, it's something that we desperately need in Lincoln County, and so I hope that bump stays small and that it is we easily overcome. But Molly, you had a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
So outside of housing developments, tell us about the ambulance services response to the proposed 6% tax.
Yeah, so Governor Janet Mills proposed her biennial budget proposal in early March, late February, and part of that was a proposal for a way to increase the amount of money that ambulance services are reimbursed for main care insurance patients.
Oh, interesting.
And some background for this discussion is that insurance reimbursement is a big part of how ambulance services recoup the money that they spend on staff, on equipment, on running their vehicles, all of the, myriad of costs that are involved in being an ambulance service. And they say, like, the main ambulance association, or there's a lobbying group, sorry, I don't know the official name, but they've said that reimbursements are a big challenge for them in terms of actually recouping that. So the proposed solution from this biennial budget was to impose a 6% tax on all revenue of non-municipal ambulance services, which is means services that they don't belong to a town. They might be private for profit. That's kind of rare. They might be nonprofit, like multi-town, which we see a lot in Maine, where it's very rural and a small town can't afford to have their own ambulance service most of the time. So in Lincoln County, you can think of Central Lincoln County Ambulance Service, which serves a number of our communities. They're a nonprofit, but they operate on their own too. And then they have contracts with all these towns. We also have Delta, which is based in central Maine, but they serve Whitefield and Somerville. And anyway, so the non-municipal services would pay 6% of their revenue. And what they said to that was, no, we cannot do that. That's going to put us under. It's going to drive our costs up. And essentially, if they want to continue operating, the people I spoke to at CLC and Delta said that probably it would end up affecting the taxpayers through the contracts that they have with towns. So that's a very interesting take on a proposed way to solve a problem, which they agree is real, but they're saying this isn't the way to solve it. And then I also spoke with somebody from a municipal ambulance service, Chief Derek Booker of Waldeboro EMS, just to see what he thought, because his service wouldn't be taxed under this proposal. But he said it would still affect us because not only do they rely on non-municipal services for mutual aid, which is when they can't make it to a call, but he said it would also put a strain on them by decreasing the ability of their neighboring services to provide care and kind of strain the whole system. So everybody agrees that this is a real problem. They also seem to agree that this is probably not the way to fix it. And it sounds like they've told that to the legislature. So we'll see how that gets amended.
It sounds like a tale as old as time.
Yeah, it really is.
Welcome to government. That is pretty much like, oh yeah, this is problem, but solution don't like. Will hurt.
Yeah, I think the discussion about ambulance services in Maine is really fascinating. And I mean, it's so high stakes because we need it. And yet I cover Somerville, for example, which is very rural, kind of in between Augusta and us. And they have few options for ambulance services, and they are very lucky to be served at all. Well, that's my personal opinion, just because like they can't
lucky.
find. No, that's not what I mean. But
I know.
Like they're facing very few options, so they feel lucky. I'll rephrase because they have a service that's willing to travel to them. But even so, like, it's pretty unavoidable that sometimes the times when you are waiting for care could be like longer than they would be if you were in a city, clearly. So it's an interesting discussion. It's a very costly industry, and seeing people try to solve these problems is very interesting to me. Yeah,
definitely. And that's I'm sure that will deeply affect us, and we will, you all will be on.
So more centrally in Wiscasset, Piper, you went to a hearing.
I did.
Yeah, about some history affecting us today.
Yeah, what's going on over there?
So there was a public hearing in Wiscasset on March 5th to discuss how we're feeling about a bill that would aim to dedicate the Route 1 railroad crossing to James Weldon Johnson, who is a pretty well-known historical figure. He was an accomplished writer, lawyer, educator, consul, and leader of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And he died at that railroad crossing in 1938 in a train vehicle collision. So the select board heard from over 30 residents and people interested in speaking to the bill. And, it was a very common thought that Johnson was a very important figure, but it was very split on whether they wanted to dedicate this crossing to him or not, partially because he had no connection to Wiscasset other than his death, and partially because there's already a bench in the town common dedicated to him.
Oh,
So a lot of people were concerned about having sort of multiple memorial spaces for one person. And it also kind of sparked a conversation about how the town memorializes and dedicates things to people. Because some people said they would rather see the crossing dedicated to someone who had a large role in making Wiscasset what it is today.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So all in all, people were pretty split about what to do. So the select board ended up sending a letter of support for the bill. And within that, they said that they would move the bench down by the railroad to make it like one space for this person. So yeah.
So that is what's going to happen.
That is what's going to happen, I think. So, the DOT eventually will get down there and they'll put up a what I have come to understand is a street sign sized sign. It's basically saying that this is the James Weldon Johnson Railroad crossing. So
nice. Compromise?
Yeah. Compromise.
Yeah, that sounds, yeah.
So yeah, hopefully Wiscasset will go forward having more open conversation about how they would like to dedicate spaces to people, because I think a lot of people voiced that they would like to see more of that. So
awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great example of how compromise can happen in discussions.
Yeah.
So no one was happy, basically, right?
No one was fully happy. Because some people thought it was a no-brainer to do it, and some people were kind of hesitant, and some people just straight up didn't want to. So
well, it sounds like they really nailed the compromise, because everyone walks away unhappy. That is an effective compromise, right?
yeah. So for everyone that wants to keep up with it, the proposed bill is LD 243, resolved to name a railroad crossing in Wiscasset the James Weldon Johnson Crossing. It's currently with the Maine Legislature's Transportation Committee. So I don't know if they've scheduled any more work sessions or public hearings for it, but
well, if they read your article, maybe they'll know what to say. Because I was just thinking to myself, how many people in the legislature know exactly what railroad crossing it is,
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
That is true.
And then the character of the county, Johnathan, you didn't write it. We had Sherwood write it, but you know
But
this
you know
person.
him.
I do, yeah. B.J. Russell is a Round Pond staple. Great, character that Sherwood did. And it was fun to read because BJ I've known in a couple capacities, and one of them as the longtime owner of King Road Market in Round Pond, which is sort of the central hub of sort of the culture of Round Pond, and just it's famously open all the time, like every day.
Yeah.
It's open. It's like from 7 to 7. 7 days a week.
Nice.
It's crazy. And then I think they take like the morning of Christmas off. It's pretty wild. It has a similar sort of consistent reputation that the Narrows has. Like the Narrows is just open every day except Christmas, right? So the Narrows in Waldoboro. But so BJ owned it for a long time. Him and his wife Lori Crook are Round Pond residents, and BJ is also a hell of a drummer. That's how I know him too. He used to play in a band called the Round Pond Rangers with Jimmy Nelson and John Rennie. The Round Pond Rangers were a big deal for a while. They people still love them. And now my dad is a part of the new Rangers, which is the Round Pond Rangers without a drummer. It's just older. But BJ was a part of that for a long time. And, he's a famous guy around here. So Sherwood did a great job, great interview. And I would totally recommend picking up a copy to hear a little bit more about the life and times of BJ Russell, which is endlessly fascinating, especially as a Round Pond native.
Yeah, it's so fun to read Sherwood writing about musical people, because Sherwood is a big musician.
He gets it, right.
He understands.
Like these guys play together. So Sherwood gets, and that's, it's cool. It's cool talking to musicians. I love interviewing musicians and artists, like people that are kind of thinking about, what is it that really gets me?
Yeah.
Love that stuff.
Yeah.
So BJ, if you're listening, what's up, man?
Jonathan, can you talk about, speaking of artists, the youth show at Watershed?
Oh yeah! Wow, what a cool event! So the Watershed, it's the Watershed Center for Ceramic Arts. They have an office in Edgecombe, but it's right on the town line. So their studio is down in Newcastle. It's on Cochrane Road, off of Route 1. So their campus is a bit split, but in the office, the administrative office, they have a gallery, and they just did their inaugural K-12 Maine clay exhibition, where they reached out, the administrators of Watershed reached out to teachers in Maine, and they also posted in different forums to tell teachers, like, send us the work of your students that you want to see in the gallery. And there were 9 schools represented, like 40 students. It was really cool to go, and I got to interview a couple of kids. Interviewed one student who was like, yeah, I mostly do, because it was all ceramic work. She was like, I mostly do like pen to paper. Like I make, all these beautiful characters, like this. She's like, this is cool. But
She's at Watershed.
She's at
like,
Watershed,
yeah.
which is like, for those of us, locally, Watershed is a big deal in the ceramic world, and they have a real international presence. They're a big deal. And locally, it's like, oh yeah, Watershed, they're just down the road. So this kid was really funny. Emily, she was like, this is really interesting, but this isn't even my best work. And I'm like, that's great. Good for you. Another student I spoke to, is it Ella Seymour? She had a really wonderful piece called the wincing pot, teapot. And it was this teapot that was wincing from the hot water that was supposed to be inside of it. It was just wincing a bit. And it was such a cool take on just like, it was like the emotion of the utility of an object. And she articulated really beautifully, like, how cool it is to be at Watershed, and that they do have that international presence, but they're working with local students. And she like acknowledged that perspective, and went on to talk about how she's going to go to art school likely, and that was it was really nourishing to like see young artists talk about their work. Excited, 10 out of 10. I'll go back and look at some of the stuff. It was really, really awesome. Some work was really cool. All of it was really cool, but shout out to Watershed for making the effort to do some local stuff and like really kind of connect with the local community, which they have done, but just to see this at like a youth level, very cool, very cool. So if those who are interested, Cochrane Road off of Route 1 in Edgecombe, head down there. It's the yellow building on the right-hand side. If you go down a bit, I think it's 103 Cochrane Road, and that's spelled, Cochrane is spelled Cochran. So awesome. Go on down. Be a good time, good hang. So, and also visit their website for more information. Mm-hmm. Probably.
Awesome. Well, we have a wrestling win, number 170 for St. Cyr of Lincoln Academy. Mm-hmm. A story that our sports reporter Mick LaBelle wrote.
Yeah, that's wild. What is it? 6th place at New England's?
Yeah, which is crazy. That was on March 8th to 9th in Rhode Island. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, Adam St. Cyr and his father. Is it Sean St. Cyr? He was my advisor at Lincoln Academy.
Oh, really?
And his father, and so Mr. St. Cyr is Adam's dad, and he's also the wrestling coach there. And Mr. St. Cyr, I believe, is retiring from coaching.
Yeah.
Coming up here. So a real legacy that the St. Cyrs have built in the wrestling world.
Big time.
But congratulations to Adam. Mm-hmm. What else? We had a bunch of stuff happening in sports.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mick really represented this week. Stepping Stone Housing, Inc. raised more than $42,000 during a round-robin tennis tournament at the CLC YMCA. It was their 11th annual Serving to Prevent Homelessness tournament.
Serving. I get it.
So they've raised more than $418,000 over the years to support their mission of providing affordable transitional housing for individuals and families earning less than a living wage in Lincoln County.
Awesome.
So, good cause.
Yeah, that's an amazing
And Molly, some Madomic seniors
Let's go, Madomic.
rose to the challenge at Maine McDonald's
As they
All-Star
will.
Weekend, as they always will. Familiar names in Madomic sports, Gabe Lash and Katana Williamson were there. Gabe Lash was part of the South team, which won 101-96 in overtime in the boys class AA, A, and B Maine McDonald's All-Star Game on March 8th in Bangor. Gabe was also one of 3 finalists for the Maine Basketball Award, Mr. Maine Basketball Award, but
Wow.
sadly he didn't get that one. That
Still
was
a finalist. That's
still
awesome.
a finalist, big deal.
Yeah.
And then Katana was there. She played in the girls AA, A, and B All-Star Game. And she's Madomic Valley's all-time leading scorer for the girls program, and she was one of 10 semifinalists for Miss Maine Basketball, which is also a big deal.
Wow.
But yeah, sounds like it was a good weekend for Madomic Valley.
Good season for Madomic Valley.
Good season for Madomic Valley.
Yeah,
and,
seriously.
Great representation from Lincoln Academy and Madomic. Sounds like the Lincoln County is well represented in the environment of state sports. And so I hope that dominance continues. Go Lincoln County.
Yeah,
How
and
about that?
real quick shout out to Christian Schumann, who won the boys state foul shooting championship. Got 48 out of 50.
Also from Madomic.
He was also named to the 2025 McDonald's Academic All-Stars team.
That is wild.
Madomic Valley. What do they put in the water over there?
Foul shooting. Good, solid fundamentals. The DePatsy cure or whatever. I don't know.
But yeah, as per usual, we can't sit here and talk about everything that was in the paper. So I guess we'll be moving on to a little reminisce about Jonathan's time at the LCN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Joining us for that will be our editor-in-chief, Maia. And yeah, I'm going to say thank you later, and I'll say thank you now. This is being in the podcast. It's been a great time. But you're right, Piper. We can't cover everything in the paper. So in order to fully digest these stories, make sure to pick up your
pick
copy
it
this
up.
week.
Yeah. It's not at Hannaford.
It's $1.06.
Yeah.
All right.
Or you can come to the office. We keep them in the
We'll just
in the
tell you
foyer.
about it.
I'll just tell you all about it.
Come on down.
Yeah. But really, I think the people who listen to the podcast read the paper.
Well, we'll find out.
So, Jonathan, you're leaving us.
Just physically. In spirit, I will be here. Always. I will haunt this place for a long time.
Don't we all?
The many ghosts that haunt these halls.
The many ghosts. I will join their ranks. And so
Yeah, you want to tell the people what's going on? We didn't just fire you and then invite you onto this to
really, that would be a really
that would
brutal
be hilarious.
and funny procedure to uphold here at Lincoln County News. Yeah, the latest fired. Well, you get to talk on the podcast. No, I am going to be. Right now, it looks like I'll be returning to graduate school in the fall and to pursue an education in theology. I'd be receiving. It depends on the university that I end up going to, but it's either a comprehensive master of arts in religion or a master of theological studies. Both would set me up for doctoral studies in the future. And so right now I'm considering, I've been accepted to Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. I have to sing a song in my head every time I say Nashville because I keep wanting to say Kentucky. But anyway, so Nashville, Tennessee, and then Duke University in Durham, North Carolina.
And you're waiting to hear back from 2 more, I believe.
I'm waiting to hear back.
And we're not going to jinx it.
We're not going to jinx it. I'm waiting to hear back from 2 more universities, Harvard and Yale, and we'll see. I heard back from Harvard. I didn't get into Harvard, which is okay. But I'm waiting to hear back from Yale right now. So it is in the works, and it made sense to step away from reporting for a a period of time where it seems like I will be moving away, and my partner made a good point that it'd be nice for me to be around a little bit more, or a little more available. She gets off of work, and sometimes I'm at meetings pretty frequently. But she was like, "Are you just going to move to Nashville after working all the time between now and then?" And the answer was no. After a little while,
as it should be,
right? So it's a decision to I'll likely sling some drinks this summer. So y'all who are listening in Lincoln County. I might be behind one of your favorite bars, or maybe at a wedding that you attend. I do occasionally still bartend with 1812 Farm in Bristol, and whether it's a wedding, sometimes a funeral, life, death, and the press. I get you everywhere.
Jonathan, I think it could seem to some people who haven't heard you speak about it like a bit of a left turn to go to divinity school after working at a community newspaper. But the way that I've heard you talk about it has somehow made it make sense. So I wonder if you could give your little spiel.
Yeah, my little spiel. So before I was a reporter, I was a writer. I taught poetry at the University of New Hampshire. I've taught English as a second language in Vietnam. In undergrad, I was teaching slam poetry. I was competing in spoken word poetry. So poetry and writing has been a part of my life since like high school. I wanted to be a rapper in high school at Lincoln Academy. So I would freestyle on the bus on the way home. But being
glorious. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So during my studies at UNH, where I got an MFA in writing, it made sense to me that writing is not just an academic thing. It is the witnessing and action of identity formation. When someone sits down and writes about themselves, they are enacting with trying to figure out who they are, like sort of sculpting themselves out. So poetry is a great thing for students to do, because you start with the self, and then eventually the writer moves outward. And so that act, instead of looking at it through an academic lens, I believe it's a spiritual lens that we should be looking at that ritual and what that kind of effect can have on a community. And those things have really deepened for me. Those beliefs have deepened for me here at the Lincoln County News, because we've seen, how writing can affect community really, in tangible ways. Like we'll talk about the January storms, I'm sure, but just taking innumerable photos of that event, the town of Bristol asked to be given them to help gauge their FEMA funding response, right? And then people were really excited to see that response to the storms, just writing down what happened. And then, we can talk about Schooner, people were really, the community came back together just over, and those are just writing examples of my own. But when we write articles, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. And that writing has allowed the community to both like mourn together, understand, and in its own way, create a more realistic, reflection of their identity in the act of writing. So for me, that's still a spiritual thing. It's a very spiritual process. So whether it's a community that's figuring itself out or a university teenager, it's a very deeply spiritual practice. And so I don't believe I'm going to be leaving journalism forever or even teaching. I've been a writer. I've been a journalist, which I've learned how to do here, and it's been really wonderful. I've been a teacher all along too. So I think that this education at Divinity School is going to help me deepen my understanding of my own value systems, and so that I can then deepen my work in the community.
Wow.
Well said.
Yeah.
I spent months writing those essays, which were great.
Yeah, it's very compelling.
A great process.
I think you're putting words to something that kind of encapsulates why we are reminded that our work is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And growing up with the Lincoln County News, I grew up in Bremen. We went to GSB, Lincoln Academy. I remember there's been such a fabulous transition between going through the sports page as a teenager, just looking for photos that Paula Roberts took of me while I was playing basketball. There aren't a ton, by the way, but going through and looking for that, to looking now at just how incredible it is that we have this place that values this work, going to select board meetings and helping people understand what is happening around them, which is so hard. It's so hard to be caught up and understand what is happening at any given moment. But if you read the Lincoln County News, every week, if you don't read anything prior, you just start reading it now, within, a few months, you're going to start to understand what is happening. And, it's really incredible what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
You brought up the January storm coverage and your coverage of the schooner fire. Are those the more memorable pieces for you? What pieces stand out that you've done?
Yeah. And we've covered it in this podcast a couple of times, but the schooner fire was dear to me because I was a bartender there for a while and worked there for a long time. Almost 10 years. It was like 8 years. And then the January storms, I worked down in New Harbor in high school on the Hardy boat. And so I grew up, that was my first job really, and grew up going down there and just this whole coastline. So those are examples of how I've watched, while I've been working as a journalist, how this has changed. My home has changed. And, the January storms, have reminded us that we need to build the piers higher. It's just true. The storms are getting, maybe not, the worst is the wrong word, but just more erratic. Yeah. And that is, it's not, I don't want to make that a political statement. It's just, I watched a third of, waterfront structures fall into the harbor. And that's been difficult. So those things stick out to me as points where I was really excited to be working at the news and being able to be so close to events that meant so much to me because I love this community so much. I wouldn't rather be anywhere else than right next to and even in the fire. And
I'd prefer you not be in fire.
In the fire, but just in the fire of the story, which actually at the schooner, I wasn't in the fire, but did get to see a lot of that. But it hasn't been all catastrophe.
This is true. I actually wanted to ask you because it was a place that readers might know your byline best from, beyond the schooner fire and beyond the January storms, is the characters of the county column, for which you won an award through the Maine Press Association of community columnist. So what's been your approach when you write characters? I mean, it's something that we all rotate through. But I mean, as someone who grew up here and is getting to, profile the people you've known for all of, if not most of your life, what's that experience been like?
It has made me, it's been an interesting experience because I sort of, it's not always selfish, but when I sit down with someone, I am waiting. I want to hear everyone's story. And I think that if I hear enough people's stories, I will eventually hear my own. And so there's this deep seeking that I am doing when I'm sitting down with people that I want to hear, so what's it like? What's been your philosophies going through life? And what did you learn about love from, whatever. And my approach has been, trifold. I've been able to be introduced to really significant community members working with characters of the county that I didn't know very well, and also affirmed that some of the community members I knew who were pillars, that they were very much pillars, and I got to know the details of that. Some people I've known for most of my life, and I learned new things about them. But the approach has been, I like to say that, everyone, no one is uninteresting. There's only people who think they're uninteresting. And it's my job when I sit down with you to just ask you these questions to maybe you can see just how interesting you are, because everyone has that. And if you don't feel that when you read the article, maybe I've failed as a journalist, but when I read those things, I generally am this was incredible. you're so interesting. I didn't know that you like make axes in your spare time. Who knew that? You know, like I'm thinking of Jed Weiss.
Yeah.
He has a cast iron restoration business on the side, and he's one of our characters. He right now is the Pumpkin King, right? Pump for Pumpkin Fest.
One of the best photos for the character.
On the pumpkin.
Yeah. I was like, that tells you so much using so little. I loved it.
Yeah, so it's just getting to know the community a little bit better, and it is actually, I don't know that it's changed my vision of the community, but it has deepened my understanding of that we contain multitudes, and it is a really difficult thing that I think we do each week, try to distill a life into 1,200 words approximately. So it's just made me feel like whole.
Yeah.
Sitting down with those people and really affirming that we do live in a good place with a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah.
Definitely. I have a question. Do you know how many Character of the County articles you wrote? Because I do.
I'm excited about this.
48.
Oh my God, yeah.
Is it exactly 48?
How do you know that?
Just guessed.
Oh my God.
Jonathan, I'm sorry, you need to do 4 more. So that,
A full year?
yeah.
I mean, well, that's it. So that's actually pretty remarkable because I was out probably in total for 2 months.
Yes.
Because for those of you that don't know, I was out for a while with a big knee surgery and walking was hard. So that was like 6 weeks. But yeah, I based that off of.
Wow, that was incredible.
Sherwood did a count not a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had like crossed 40. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that it was north of that, but I didn't feel like I've done 50. So I just said 48. That's crazy. So, okay.
What makes it incredible is like what would have been your 2-year mark isn't for another, like what? 2
months.
2.5 months or 2 months?
So we're at the end. Well, I guess we're in the middle of March. For some reason, it's the end of March in my head. So yeah. April, May. I mean, I'm putting on my resume 2 years. I'm sorry.
Right.
When I tell my kids, it'll be 5 years.
When you tell your grandkids, solid decade.
I've told you this. This is like the Brian Scalabrine interview after the NBA Finals. And the reporter was like, "What in 2007 or 2008 when the Celtics won the NBA Finals, a reporter asked a player who didn't play 1 minute in the finals in 7 games. It was a 7-game series. What he's going to tell his kids about, like how he felt about not playing any minutes but still being on the championship team. And he was like, dude, in like 2 years, I'll tell my kids I started. In 5 years, I was the MVP. In 10 years, I'm a Hall of Famer. So that's how I'll be recounting my time here in the Lincoln County News.
Well, in give or take 2 years, like you essentially wrote a character piece, like what, every other week then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll probably work out to, it'll probably be every other week if you took out the time that I wasn't in.
When you were incapacitated.
When I was incapacitated, yeah. So I guess I need to do 4 more.
You need to do 4 more. I mean, you got time.
You got time?
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see about some things.
We'll see. We got some things in the hopper that I might call you up.
Cool.
I may just call you on a Wednesday and be like, hey, why aren't you at staff meeting? And then you'll show up and then you'll forget that you don't work here and then you'll work here again. It's fine.
Is that the like Seinfeld quitting?
Yes.
Where like George freaks out at one of the bosses or at his boss and Jerry, I forget who said it, but they were just like, just go in the next day and just pretend it didn't happen. And he does. And they're just like, are you kidding me?
But it works.
But it worked.
It worked,
yeah.
I think Molly's got some more questions.
Yes. So I've compiled the Johnathan Riley news quiz.
Yes.
If we're willing to take it. And I think the way this should work is that Jonathan answers first.
Okay.
And then if he's wrong, other people can buzz in.
Sweet.
But you just have to go buzz and I'll pick people.
Okay.
All right. So first of all, we've talked about you writing 48 characters of the county pieces. How many stories overall did you write for the newspaper in your tenure, which, as we just said, began in May of 2023?
Probably a little less than 350.
375.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
375.
Sorry, I didn't give anybody else.
That's okay.
Dang.
That's okay.
Well, next, how many of those stories appeared on the Bangor Daily News through our content sharing agreement? And they tend to pull pieces that are kind of like of statewide
Yeah,
significance.
they're
Yeah.
funny about what they pull and don't. I remember going through and finding that answer. Not 6.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Just so you guys know, I also stare at myself in the mirror every morning for like 45 minutes.
That explains why your hair is always at a perfect
You know,
angle.
I don't actually touch my hair in the morning. I take a shower
He
before I
woke
go to
up like
bed and I
this.
wake up like this.
I hate you so much right now. That's.
It's just.
Do you know how much work this takes? I'm gesturing
I
to
also
my
have.
hair.
Well, you have long hair. You
I
all-
literally
Yeah.
came in today with wet hair because I couldn't like muster up the energy to dry it.
Each and every Wednesday. Each and every Wednesday.
there
question,
is
does-
sorry, go for it.
No,
There's
does he wake up like this?
Does he wake up like this? There was a
Flawless.
photo in the Lincoln County News at some junction with me growing out my hair. I had shoulder length hair.
I saw that
I've
photo
seen
today.
that.
And I let it grow to my waist. So
That's wild.
And then
Yeah.
they used to call me the man tail instead of a ponytail.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I saw it today.
They named a week after me at sailing camp, Jaja Martin's sailing camp. They named it the man tail.
Molly, can you find that again so I can do
Reporter.
like I think that could go in an ad. I
Oh
think
my
that
God.
could go in the editorial, whatever.
That's funny.
Yeah, the picture is from an article about you going to young leadership camp or something in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, the Junior National Young Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C.
That was back in 2006. But more recently, you've been our reporter of many hats and you've been covering a lot of different towns. And I would say over the 2 years, very few towns have escaped your eye. But there are a couple that you haven't reported on. And when I say that, it comes with the caveat that you might have reported on their school district or like
Sure.
a countywide issue, but you didn't go to, as far as I can tell, you didn't go to a meeting. So there's 4.5 towns that
Yeah.
fall under this.
4.5.
Can I guess the half?
Yeah,
Hibbert score.
Oh,
Hibbert Square is not really even a half.
Oh, I feel like I know 2.
Let's let
are you asking? So
I'm
what are
asking
the
you
4
first.
towns?
Yep.
What are the 4 towns that I haven't gone to, specifically municipal meetings?
Yep. You haven't like covered like this town specific issue, as far as I can tell.
Wiscasset.
No.
Really?
No, you did something about them.
Nice. Okay. Then Alna. No. Well, I went to. I did Whitefield's annual town meeting, so they're off.
That's like the biggest thing you could have done in
Yeah.
Whitefield.
I feel like I know them.
I went to a Noblesboro Select Board meeting,
Yep.
Okay, then get
but I
rid of
didn't
one.
write anything
Oh, okay.
from that meeting.
So that
I
was a
remember.
silly-
Wait, really?
It
Noblesboro was one of them?
Yeah.
I've gone to a couple of Noblesboro Select meetings,
Yeah.
but
Then
They
you've only
save
got-
all their like decisions for when Piper's there. 110%.
and this was before these
This was
guys showed
before
up.
my
This was.
existence.
I remember this was about the only thing on the agenda when I went was about like the renewal of the Historical Society's
I
contract.
remember
to lease a
seeing
buil-
your name on the minutes.
Yeah, I
that
was
you were
there.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't write anything. So I guess technically I went, but I wasn't.
Okay.
So Noblesboro,
two
all
more.
no.
2 more. And also, I just want to add that I'm not including Booth Bay Harbor, and Southport.
Oh, good
'cause
call.
Booth Bay registered.
Well, then Westport,
Yep.
and
Nice.
that's interesting. I'm trying to remember if I did anything. I did do things in Edgecombe.
Has he done stuff in Dresden?
That's the last one.
Da, 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 da. Wait,
Well-
what did you do in Somerville?
Yeah, what did he
He
do?
used to cover it a little.
I thought it was going to be Alna.
Oh. Yes, I know what you did in Somerville.
What I
You
do?
covered them getting fire equipment donated to them from
yeah.
Oh no way! That's right.
yeah,
weird. That's a weird because I had to call them about that.
Yeah.
that is a town thing
so
because it was from
funny.
Bristol. That feels like a. I mean,
You never like went to a meeting, though,
but and so then Dresden, I never went to a meeting, but I did interview like Jan Goranson for a
Yeah,
character
you
piece,
did.
and have like
Yeah.
gone and talked to
oh yeah,
the
the character
folks.
pieces I didn't.
Yeah.
count.
Yeah.
Right, that
We at some point should maybe for your editorial we should go through and figure out what towns he didn't do a character piece for.
Yeah.
what town that I didn't do a character piece for? I
Everett's
still
cool.
wished that And who knows? I mean, it's up to Maya and John. I might be able to do.
It's a thing.
I might be able to do something later. Who knows? Not going to put anything out there. Hasn't even talked about it, so it doesn't matter.
No.
So, Booth Bay would have been cool to venture into a little bit more. Some characters down there, that's for sure.
Okay, wait. So all in all, what was the final answer?
Oh, the final answer was he hasn't gone to meetings in Alma, Dresden, Westport Island, or Hibbert Score, where there are no meetings.
But
So-
still, it counts.
Yeah,
So
I've
out of-
covered
Are we
Hibbert Score.
counting Monhegan? Have you been to a Monhegan
He's
meeting?
been to Monhegan stuff.
He's been to Monhegan.
Yes, I've
He's
covered.
done town news on Monhegan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question is, how many hours have you spent in meetings?
Oh no.
How
I
do
don't
you have
know
an
a
answer?
solid answer, but I've made my own calculation.
How many hours have I spent in
Yeah.
meetings?
Well,
Can
let's
we
go
go-
days at this point.
Days? Oh, can we
Yeah.
go closest without going over?
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Go
start
for
with
it, Jonathan.
Wow. Quick, calculate the velocity of the moon.
Well, at least
Are we doing days?
Let's do days, and keep in mind this is like a soft estimate based on my best attempt at math.
I would guess I've been here for 2 years, 12 months each, so 24 months. How many days have I spent in meetings? Municipal only?
24-hour periods. Yeah.
24-hour periods. I would say 16 days.
Piper, you can go next.
20.
Maya?
Well, some of those meetings were pretty
Yeah.
long. Tell you what, I am going to take the under. I'm going to say 15.
Well, Piper wins because by my calculations, if he goes to an average of 3 meetings a week,
And they're like
meetings
2 hours.
an average of 2 hours, that's 25 days
Yeah.
in meetings, which is
Yeah.
almost a month of 24/7
And
meeting
that-
attendance.
24-hour continuous days.
Yes. Yes.
And that doesn't include like our staff meetings,
Yeah.
which I will say keep getting longer and longer as we
Yes.
come up with more and more
Yes.
things to say.
So learning that, I want to tell you that it 1000% feels like it. I
definitely.
totally. Jesus.
Yeah. So my last group of questions are about before you had a byline, your name was appearing in the Lincoln County News because you've been a part of this community for a lot longer than you've worked here.
Yes.
So what was the earliest that your name appeared in the newspaper?
April 1999.
Yep. And you know what? Have you seen this?
I know what it is. It was actually, I believe that it was a photo from the Bristol School Carnival, or well, they had a different name for it.
Carnival.
Carnival. Yeah.
Oh, buddy.
And it was a photo of me and Cameron Jordan, whom many people may know now as Cameron Rennie, our local senator. Cameron Jordan and Cameron Rennie. The reason why I am not allowed to interview Cameron
Yes.
is because Cameron was my babysitter as a kid. So, yeah.
Yeah, she's
she's
telling
just
your
coming to
fortune.
life.
She is. She's
reading
telling-
your palm.
that's right,
Do
she
you
was the
remember what she said?
No, I don't remember what she said.
No,
Do you
I
have
don't,
that?
I don't
Sad.
know.
I think she
I
said
was
something
like-
to the effect of, "You will work for the Lincoln County News one day."
She's always been on the nose.
She is on the nose, but yes, that was the first photo of me. It's a blur. It's kind of it's a weird photo. It's like, I think Sherwood probably took it. Like when I showed it to him, Sherwood
That
was
would
like,
be hilarious.
well, he said that when I showed him it, he was like, "This is, I think." I think I took that photo, and I was like,
Oh my
you didn't
God.
say hi?" Future coworker.
That would make sense because there's no like attribution in the cut line, which I feel like is something we do for long-term staff.
Yep.
So it
Yeah.
could be a Sherwood photo. All right, 2 more questions.
Yeah.
August 30th, 2012. You appeared in the police report.
Oh, you just
Yes,
had
I
to call
did.
him out like that.
Ooh, I just wait.
just
August 30th, 2012,
Why were
That
you in
was
the
when you
police
were
report more than
arrested.
once?
when I was arrested. Yeah.
This is a particular question because I'm asking about this particular instance.
About this instance,
How many miles per hour over the speed limit were you driving at the Lincoln Academy campus?
at the Lincoln Academy campus.
on Academy Hill.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So actually, that's really
Jonathan.
funny because we were talking about a different thing, Maya. I was stopped by Officer Mark. He was the resource officer at Lincoln Academy for
Bridget.
Mark Bridgham. Is that we just we call him Officer Mark. He pulled me over just after coming from, is it St. Andrews or St. Patrick's that's up there on Mills?
The Catholic Church?
Yeah, the Catholic.
St. Patrick's.
St. Patrick's. I was rounding the bend and it drops like 10 miles an hour. And he caught me as I was going. I didn't decelerate. I was going between 7 and 12 miles over.
17 miles over the speed limit,
That's
Mr.
crazy.
Riley.
Add them
42
together.
in a 25 zone.
Jonathan.
And you were 17.
Oh, yeah. That's,
Well, that's
Yeah.
need for
It's okay.
speed.
Let's go back to one of your bright shining moments for our last question. In 2006 and 2007, you won an award 2 years in a row. Now we know you as an award-winning journalist with your main Press Association awards, but you won this award from GSB for acts of kindness and helpfulness toward other students in the school. Do you remember what that award was?
A Marchiosaurus Award.
Oh, that's so cute. That's not what they put it in the paper, but
I don't know, what was the
the
award?
Spirit Award.
Oh.
Marchiosaurus?
Yeah, so that might have been, the Spirit Award might have been the rebranding of the Marchiosaurus Award, which was the kindness award, more or less, from Dick Markey, who was the longtime principal and at one point the only principal GSB ever had. And he left when I was in the 6th grade or the 7th grade. And so that timeline kind of checks out. The Kindness Award or Spirit Award?
Spirit Award for kindness.
Spirit
Spirit
Award.
of Pride. Wow,
Look at that.
such a long history.
Yeah.
I will say, like, that doesn't surprise me in the least because when we were talking about, you interviewing characters and you getting to, like, the heart of who people are, I was thinking, like, you don't do small talk. Like, when you're like, hey, how's it going? Like, if I were to be like, geez, your next question, most people would be like, well, hope it gets better. Haha, see you soon. And like, whatever. But like, we've had like really deep conversations just in something that, you would think would be in passing or whatever. So yeah, I'm going to miss those. I'm also going to miss you asking me to justify why I don't like Asiago cheese.
Asiago? Asiago? Yeah.
Iago.
Yeah, and what is it, goat cheese and feta?
It is.
Yeah.
See, that memory.
Well, it all kind of makes sense to me. I mean, it's like they're kind of briny and kind of stinky, and they have a funk to them.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
What's your take on cottage cheese?
My take on cottage cheese is why would you have that when you can have ricotta cheese,
It's healthier. Ricotta tends to be a little more like fat dense.
but like it's the texture of cottage cheese for me.
Totally understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've had a lot of conversations about cheese, you guys.
Yeah.
You can continue those,
Oh, yeah. Just like our group chat is just cheese.
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Maya. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like asking people questions, which is, was probably helpful in trying to be a journalist. I just want to get to the heart of what is happening, at least with people. I feel that's a really natural inclination for me, is like understanding like how people are operating. Now, how does a school budget operate? It took me a lot longer to figure out that natural inclination, which was not. It was more synthetic. Now I understand. Now I'm like, okay,
Now
wow,
you're
this
ready
is crazy.
to lecture some select boards like, dudes, do your budget better.
I am. All right. Y'all lucky. I'm
He
just
came
kidding.
in to ask me if he could tell some people. I was like, no.
Y'all know who you are. That is true.
Yes.
I've appreciated your perspective, both on like being a reminder of how crazy some of these things are, and in terms of like keeping us grounded and believing that our work is important, but also like that when we're staring at a school budget and like I'm about to cry, like it's gonna be okay.
It is. I mean, I remember the first article I wrote, the budget article, Maya, it was like a real trial by fire. It was for Bremen's municipal budget. And she was like, write the municipal budget. And I was like, great. I've never done that. I don't know. So
I'm a big fan of throwing someone in the deep end and being like, let's see what you swim with.
She threw me off the Damascata Bridge.
And then drowned.
And I messed up the numbers or whatever. And that was, I called the town office and like apologized. I was like, I think I miscalculated. And Melanie Pendleton, who's the town clerk there, said, "Oh yeah, I noticed that. It's okay. We'll figure it out." And so to that end, I wanted to say, just in general, for those who are listening who have helped me on this journey, I wouldn't have made it 2 years without the incredible kindness from the community that understood that I was also learning. And I did get the numbers wrong sometimes, but I never meant to. And I think that generally came across. I definitely ruffled some feathers sometimes, and that was always never intentional. But I really was astounded at how kind people were about some of my mistakes. Not all the time, but most of the time, people were very kind in the community. They're like, "Oh, that's okay. Like, we will just, now you know." And it was like very, I don't think that coddling is not the right word. They're very like, we know that your intentions are good.
Yeah, they're definitely responding to the genuineness of the way that you approach our work and going to municipal meetings. And it's very evident, I think, that you care deeply about the community and about the role, and that you take your job very seriously. And I feel like people respond to that and feel seen and appreciated. And we know that when you are interviewing someone for a community newspaper, whether it's a character who maybe, like you said, doesn't think that they're interesting, or a town that maybe hasn't been covered, like with such an eye for detail that you have, a lot of times people really appreciate that. And I think that's what they're responding to.
Thank you. It's, I love this place. And so it's easy to be interested in the people you love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Piper, you're going to miss Johnathan.
Me?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Putting
No,
words in
I've
her
been
mouth.
so quiet because I won't.
Why do you say that to
Because
me
you
right now?
guys are desk neighbors.
I know.
And I don't know. I feel like we have a good rapport. So I'm just projecting.
Johnathan, you're so silly. You make me laugh all the time. I'm going to miss you.
I'm going to miss you too.
The one thing I always think...
Except for.
No. I was going
You're
to
like,
say...
you stink.
No, I was going to say one of the highlights of our relationship development is quite literally like 2 days after I met you and we got stuck in a car together going to the Maine Press Association conference in Portland.
I forgot about that.
And it was quite literally, I think, one of the most in-depth conversations I've ever had with somebody I just met. We did not listen to any music. We just asked each other questions about each other and like what led us to this point in life. And it was crazy.
You guys are nuts.
I was like, I've never had somebody talk to me like this, like 2 days after I met them. So I knew from the very beginning that you were different from the people I've met. But it was, I feel like we got to know each other really well there.
Yeah.
And it just led us to this wonderful friendship that we've had and that we will have forever.
Absolutely. Well, I remember, I mean, we had just met and, both of you started around the same time, within a week of each other last fall.
2 falls ago.
2 falls ago. Jesus Christ. 2 falls ago. And that was, I was so stoked to have you guys here. I was like, I was also a little nervous because it's always, nerve wracking bringing new people into a space. I think at the time it was just Elizabeth Walstoney and I, the former Damascata reporter. And so Elizabeth and I had a good thing. I remember we were talking about like, oh man, I hope these guys are cool. Cause like, Elizabeth and I were getting along real good and it was like, all right. And so getting the opportunity to share, like an hour car ride with you immediately, I was like, sweet, turning down the music. All right. And also my speakers are blowing in my car, so I don't play music that often. So I was like, hey, so why are you here? What's going on? And I just, it's just a genuine curiosity. And yeah, you've been a real light in my life, Piper. All of you have. And I'll definitely miss you.
You need to stop being so nice to me right now. I will cry.
Okay. I can acquiesce.
It was just wild because I was like pretty fresh out of college, 22 years old as my first big girl job. And all of a sudden I was getting I don't make this to sound bad, but I was getting in a car with a dude for an hour and a half that I didn't know. A
virtual stranger.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to say something really dumb.
No, I don't. It was a lovely car ride. And I do remember in Portland, because you were, I was like, you're kind of new to like just right here. So I was like, we have a second. Let's stop at this place that I like to call the top of the world in Portland. I want to show you this really beautiful vantage point of the city of Portland. And we stopped. It's really amazing. You walk through this little park and it opens up and it's this incredible vista of the whole city. And I was like, yeah, this is it. And then we went to MPAs and there was like a 4-hour award ceremony.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had no idea that spot was there, even though I've grown up in Maine.
Yeah.
And I actually took Michael, my boyfriend, there a little bit ago. Because I was like, oh my God, you have to see this place Johnathan showed me. It was like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. I can't even believe that you brought me there. Like, it was just...
I was like, have you ever been there? We're going to South Portland.
It was
like, come on. I was like, you gotta do this.
I was like, we're going where?
I was like, we just call it the top of the world because I used to live in Portland, and during COVID, that was like our... Yeah.
That was your walk.
Yeah.
No.
I will say one of my highlights during your time here, of which there have been many. Don't get me wrong.
Innumerable, right? Yeah, so many. Beyond talking with you about like various cheeses and coffees and drinks and everything. But I remember last October, this most recent MPA was up in Bar Harbor, and it was the three of you, and then also Nolan Wilkinson, who has since departed from the job, not like from
the
job.
world.
Not yeah.
Hey, Nolan.
Hi.
So, Nolan, I know you listen to this, Nolan.
So it was you guys and Nolan, who was with us at the time, and then we ran into Elizabeth Walsh-Toney, and because she's with the BDN and kicking butt. And then Aiden, Jonathan's partner, was also there, and Jessica Picard, who was a reporter when, in 2018, was also there because she currently freelances for the Harpswell Anchor.
Yeah.
And the morning after the award ceremony, we went to the awards. We saw J.W. Oliver, B.C. Cameron Yee, a bunch of people we had all worked with, whatever. But the following morning, it was our group who all met up for breakfast. And I actually sent John a photo of you all at the table. And I was like, "Aw, this is like generations of Lincoln County news reporters. And you all are getting along." And it made me happy.
Wild? I remember walking into one session at the last MPA, and somebody was like, "Why is everybody from the Lincoln County News?"
Yeah.
It was it was identified pretty early that because that was also with Maia's blessing, and I was able to sit as a panelist last year during MPA, which was a really mind-blowing experience for me, just to have like not been a journalist 2 years prior to sitting with Michael Shepard, the
Journalist of the Year,
Michael Shepard
from BDN.
And I was like, all right, I guess we got the full breadth of experience here. And but acknowledging that in that round table too, we were it was just the reporters speaking, and BC was there, Jess was there. After a little while, I was like, who isn't from the Lincoln County News? And like BC was like, yeah, I used to work with the Lincoln County News, and people were like, geez. And then like we had the Booth Bay Register there, so it was Lincoln County was super well represented in that, and with Elizabeth too. And she's like, I also we had the Bangor Daily News, the Booth Bay Register, the Lincoln County News, the Harpswell Anchor, all have just deep connections in Lincoln County.
Very much a good overlap, and yeah. And the Maine Press Association conference is always just fun because of those connections and the times in between where you run into people in the hotel bar and it's like, hey, let's hang out before we all go over to the auction and whatnot. Right. Yeah. So
that was a lot of fun.
So anyway, what I'm saying is, if you could still come back the third weekend in October every year to go to the MPAs, you may need to pay your own way, but it could be fun.
I'm sure you'll be representing this year. You did a lot of good stuff. Mm-hmm. So
That's right.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about that.
Yeah.
Huh. I guess we should talk about that. I guess that award period is coming to a close soon.
Yes, it is. But before we let you go, because this podcast episode is also coming to a close, quick fire.
What?
Don't think about it too much.
Where?
Well, I mean, given how your week is going, probably somewhere.
Yeah.
he's always asking the important questions.
All right, quick fire. Don't really think about it. Your top 3 stories that you did. Go.
Wow.
Stop thinking.
Okay, well then I'll take out the January storm and the schooner.
Yep.
My favorite story. It's not. I'm just not thinking. I'm just remembering. One of my first stories was doing a 35-year anniversary for Harbor Daycare, run by Lori Mahan, and the kids. That story was really cool. I was learning a lot. I got to hang out with them. When I first started, I would hang out a lot longer.
Yeah.
And when I realized I was spending way too much time in places, like hours, like for stories, and when I realized I'm like, I can't be doing that. I am so behind on work. But I stayed with the daycare for a couple of hours, just taking photos of kids. Some of the kids were from parents that I went to school with, and all the kids wrote this huge 6-foot banner that said "Welcome, Mr. Riley," and they had scribbled Riley. They spelt it wrong, but I remember showing up, and also Lori really was hesitant to do that story. She didn't but she was like, "You are friends with some of my favorite parents, and let's do it." So that was one of the first moments I realized being from the community really mattered in this moment, and seeing the kids also, it's a quick anecdote. There's a picnic table that had just been painted, and all the kids stayed away from it. And as Lori was trying to get all the kids away, tell them don't get green on your hands. We'd turn around and the dog is just sitting on the table. And we were like, oh my God. And so that was one of my first favorites. Second, it's so hard to choose. So many people have made me feel so welcome in different communities. I don't have a second right off the top of my head. But I was going through some of the articles recently, and there were really, it's amazing. I've said this to you a few times, Maya, and you guys. This job has turned my head into it's not a library for information. Yeah. It has become a highway for information. So things pass through my facilities quickly, but it's not. It doesn't linger as long as it used to. But getting to sit down with a couple different pastors, talking with Ernie down in New Harbor was really cool. Getting to interview students at an art show at Watershed Center for Ceramic Arts in Newcastle was really cool to hear students just really excited about their art. Doing stories where it feels like I'm helping. It felt like I could ask the right questions to present someone in a way that is honest and wonderful as that person is. It's always been an incredible treat, and that's why I've really loved the characters of the county. But it's really it's hard to pick 3, but I want to thank all the boards that were patient with me. And I did a bunch of stories with, in South Bristol. And, those that don't know, I've largely been the reporter for Bremen, Bristol, South Bristol, and Monhegan. And then I've also been the Jefferson reporter, Waldoboro reporter, not really Novaboro, although I did show up for 2 meetings. Damerscott, yeah. Newcastle. But yeah, that's a great question. I'm sure I'll come up with real tangible answers in the future.
And you know where you can put them? in your editorial.
In my editorial, yeah.
For the March 20th edition. No, I'm sorry. They'll be in the editorial of the, March 20th edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I'm really grateful. So one of my favorite things that I wrote was With Your Blessing, Maia. It was an editorial, and it was about my father for last Father's Day.
Yeah.
And I was able to include a photo of myself, my sister, and my dad goofing around. And that was really important for me to be able to articulate the whimsy. My dad is a fantastic storyteller, and he makes up so much crap all the time that writing an editorial about him and celebrating both just his love and his light was really meaningful. So that was one of my favorites. And this week we might get an ode to our family dog, Josie.
Yeah.
So, but the pieces that I get to work together with all of you guys and just get stories, ask for your help, especially, the reporters, Maia, you're always asking, I'm always asking you for help on all of them, but the reporters asking you guys for help and like guidance about perspectives and taking a step back and sometimes even a step into stories has been really important. And it's been really cool to see you both grow as reporters in the time that I've been here. And, it's, I feel like I'm always coming from a place of not knowing. And when I'm in a room in our reporter room, it's, we have 4 desks and 3 reporters. When we're in our little room, I get glimpses of knowing, and it is through you guys. And I really appreciate that.
Likewise. I feel like I only have perspective when you guys are around.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Well, you guys, it's been really incredible. And that was something else at the MPAs that they talked about. That's the other newspapers. They're like, wow, so you have a physical office that you sit in the room with the other reporters with? And I was like, yeah, what do you do? Like, and I think that largely it's a little bit more disparate, and I will be forever. That's my 3rd favorite article. You guys.
Correct.
Is that part of the quiz?
Wait. How is Hedgehog not your favorite article? Come on.
Hedgehog has been quietly stealing my heart every day, and I like Hedgehog more than I like some other dogs in my life that I'm a lot closer with. But
She has that effect.
Yes.
she does. And but like I said to John Roberts when I told him I was resigning, that I am going to be like gum on the bottom of his shoe. I'm going to be sticking around. So I'm from here. This place will always be my home, and I've been lucky to call the Lincoln County News home for the last 2 years, and now it'll always be a part of my home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Been rehearsing that one.
I think that's the good note. I think that's the note to end on. That was good. I'm sorry I didn't make you cry in this final, very public exit
Very
interview.
public. Yeah, that's okay. You can call me back sometime if you have a real.
I'll give you a toast next Friday.
Yes.
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 For anyone that's in the area, you're not invited to my going away dinner. But if you want to be at Eider's at 5 o'clock,
You can watch the going
you
away
can
dinner.
watch the going away dinner, and you get to watch me eat dinner.
Get to watch us be us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad that I got to learn from you and work in the same cramped office as you for the past.
I know. It was funny because I remember when I first got here, you said you were excited to learn from me. And that really surprised me because I always thought that, obviously you're older than me. You would have more life experience than me. You would know more than me. So it really surprised me because nobody had ever said that they wanted to learn from me.
Well,
It was always the expectation that I would learn from them.
That's wild because, maybe I'm 1, 2, 7 years older than you, and maybe I know a little bit more about taxes, but I didn't have a journalism degree. I didn't go to school for this. And so I'm always so excited to step into a room where there are people who know more than I do. And this job's hard. And,
Yeah, it is.
Maia was just throwing me into budget articles, and I was really excited to have. So I was like, wait, you got a degree in this? Oh my God. So how do you do this?
Piper's first budget article was perfectly executed. And I was like,
I don't know how because I had never written anything about budgets before that. before this job.
It unlocked some part of your brain, and you were just like, "This is what I'm meant to do."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was funny because you were saying how much you were excited to learn from me, but I feel like I learned a lot personally from you. So
We're all going to make toasts on Friday. You'll
How many?
the whole thing will be toast.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited, and I know that the Lincoln County News is in good, capable hands. And yeah, I'll miss everyone.
Yeah. Well, don't go too far because, I was just saying.
Yeah, for no reason in particular. Yeah.
No. Nah. All right. Talk to you soon.
So, yeah, talk to you soon. And if this is the last time I'm on the podcast, then for our listeners, thank you for listening. And thank you for allowing me the kindness and the patience in order to speak to you through the airwaves, and also to, all the times you invited me into your homes to talk about a project that was near and dear, or even a problem. And all the articles that I've written, I really feel like is a long love letter to Lincoln County. So thank you. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast by the Lincoln County News. Production support is provided by Tyler Davis of Tyality Productions. Theme music by Stu Mahan and Sherwood Olin.
Have a question or a suggestion? Email us at info@lcnme.com. And if you haven't already, please be sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen.
This has been a Lincoln County Publishing Company production.